Hello, my friends. In this art session, I decided to build on something that I started last week in our creative meditation time together on Friday afternoon. I started on top of a background where I had then begun the work or the play of creating mandalas. So in this art session, I just went back in and added some more layers to this spread. I first used a paint pen and I fleshed out and highlighted the mandalas that were there. And now you see I'm bringing in some paint to highlight that one mandala. A lot of the work that I'm doing as I add my next layers is all about helping elements pop off the page and then in places recede back into the background. So over this art session, which all told took about an hour and a half, I just continued to add layers to this existing spread. Here I'm adding a little bit of white gesso to this existing mandala so that I could help it pop off the page a bit. I'm listening for the inner yes as I just continue to add layers, highlighting sections, helping sections blend into the background, or helping elements on the page relate to one another. I'm just following that embodied feeling of what I crave to see and what gives me that little ping of pleasure once I do see it on the page. Here I'm using a little bit of gesso in the background to help the mandala, in a sense, take up more space on the page. I'm kind of making that upper mandala the center of something that may wind up looking like a flower. And I don't have a plan here. I'm again just moving with what feels like it would feel good to see. Gesso layers in this way can really help bring a page together. When a lot is going on a page, using gesso shapes and lines can help the various elements start to hang together and make sense as more part of one image or one field of belonging on the page. Because I'm working on a background that has some darker colors, the gesso is also creating more contrast, which helps direct where my eye goes. Contrast on the page helps each of the elements stand in their own integrity more. What I'm doing here is echoing a shape that I see on other areas of the page from the collage paper that was underneath, that's still shining through the layers a little bit. And I'm bringing a similar shape forward to this top layer to play with kind of an echoing of this kind of swirling design that I'm enjoying seeing in the background from my original layers of collage paper. You'll remember that echoing shapes and patterns is one of the ways that a page starts to hang together. I especially enjoy seeing pages where the various depths of layers echo something similar, a similar pattern or shape from deep within the page up to the surface level. That echoing kind of helps the page integrate and helps these disparate materials and shapes and colors come home to one another, helps them be intentional in how they live together on the page. At least to my eye, that's how they land to my eye. So as you watch this page develop, I'm curious what you feel inside. Like, do these colors and shapes, these contrasts, does it stir something inside you? And do you feel it in your heart area, in your belly, in your jaw? Just notice if the sensations that you're feeling register in a particular part of your body, or maybe there's just an overall shift in the atmosphere that these visual elements give to your inner self. I like to just pay attention to how what I put on the page or what I see on the page, how that influences my inner atmosphere. And just in noticing and savoring how the artwork lands in me, that's deepening the medicine, the visual soul medicine of the art. It's also helping me move out of judging and evaluating brain and just into receiving and healing and being led mode. What are you enjoying as you watch this page develop? Is anything you see bringing you a sense of satisfaction? Or are you getting that little quickening sensation when you start to feel inspired? These are the things to watch for and allow. I'm going back into the background with some blue paint to create a little bit more of a sense of shape in the background and to echo again a similar kind of movement or shape, that kind of swirling, almost flower-like, leaf-like shape that I see in the collage paper on the deeper layers. I'm kind of bringing that out forward again in how I use the blue. This video is double paced, so I'm actually moving at half the speed of what you see. I didn't want you to have to watch for an hour and a half, so I cut some pieces out and sped some pieces up. But it is important to say that the process is very slow. when I work in my journal like this. For me, it's an important part of the process to notice that I can change the pace I'm working at, and that if I've been in an overly speedy mode in my life, it can be really helpful to just remind myself to slow way down as I put materials on the page. Our culture is really addicted to speed, and we miss a lot about the richness of life. We miss a lot of the nourishment that is being offered right here and now, and the inspiration. We miss these things when we move too quickly. So it looks like I'm going fast, but I'm really not. Here I am using this blue paint to create a negative space that looks a little bit like a leaf. And now I'm going back in with my paint pen to help this little design pop off the page, have a little more crispness and clarity. And I'm outlining this shape and then adding a little element inside it that again has some similar qualities to the other designs on the page. A spiral, these little looping shapes. Now I've zoomed in so that you can see in a detailed way how I'm working with the paint pen to just work to further define and deepen what we see on the page. Further refining the background by using a color of paint pen that's slightly different, either darker or lighter than the background, helps bring a feeling of refinement to the page, a nuance to the page. If my page is looking a little muddy or a little thrown together, sometimes just going in with paint pen that's slightly darker or slightly lighter than the background and creating a little bit of highlighting some of the details just gives a sense of intentionality and richness and care to the background. Also using a paint pen to highlight the edges of some of the shapes can be helpful. And here I'm repeating a little visual pattern. I think of this as scales of a fish. It's one of the patterns I like to repeat. And just having a repeating pattern, again, not in a highly contrasting color, but in a color that is just a little bit darker than the background color. Again, it just creates a sense of richness and depth in the background here. Because it's a dark color on a dark color, there's not a lot of contrast, so it's not competing with the focal points on the page, which are really these mandalas. It's not competing with it, but just creating almost a feeling of a bass note, a rich and intricate bass note behind these focal points. And as I just describe these things, this is really just how this lands for me. Your inner process as you create art might be very different. I'm just sharing with you a little bit of insight into what I'm craving to see and what I'm putting on the page and how it lands for me, just in case that can enrich your own experience as you create art. As you know, my goal in my creative process is really always, especially in my junk journal, more about process than product. It's more about creating the soul level medicine that I need to see and feel in order to integrate and harmonize my inner life. We all hold so much in our days, and we're processing so much in our lives and in our world. And a lot of us are spending a lot of time listening to others and responding to external events and external happenings. And so this journal time is really a chance to listen inward and respond to the inner cues of what we need and savoring what nourishes. It really is a creative meditation when we can keep shifting away from a focus on the outcome and stay focused on the process and what is satisfying and what little cravings are emerging and how they're getting satisfied by what we put on the page. In my experience, art that attends to the process and the feeling of receiving the medicine of the art, it often does lead to an end result that is pleasing to me to look at, and it may even feel like good medicine for other people to look at. But even if the final product doesn't become something that I cherish or think looks good, if the process fed me, the piece has done its work. But it is true that in my experience, when the process feeds me, the product also tends to. So my friends, this is how the spread looked at the end of this art session. I hope you enjoyed seeing it, and maybe you'll want to take this little video into your own art practice and play with these ideas on your own page. See you soon, my friends. Bye-bye.